I want to point out that I agree that there's a faction of the right that has taken on this approach of dismissing anyone who has an opinion that they disagree with. And I do see it amongst a few different influencers online, but I'm largely seeing it amongst Gen Z men. And I think that they, more than anyone, have taken on this approach of um, if you disagree with me on my end state, then I'm going to dismiss you entirely. But I think for Gen Z men, and bear with me as I try and put this into words because I'm going to do this for the first time. Um, they are taking on this approach because they have a hatred for the inability to say something that is obviously true, but has traditionally been um, like the
Taboo.
taboo. And I think it plays such a role in um, that graph that we see in the separation between young men and women and their political beliefs. That young men have a complete rejection of the inability to say something that is true, that is obviously true, but has been traditionally taboo. And I sympathize with their frustration
I think that's an excellent insight.
in a lot of ways. And so I think we just need to be cognizant as we're having this conversation that the generation that is taking this approach is the one that we need that is very important. Will be the one to carry the mantle of liberty and conservatism throughout the next number of decades. And yeah, I just think that that's interesting.
No, I think you're spot on. And to Christian's point, and he's brought this up before, when you've been the group that has been targeted,
Mm-hmm.
and young men have been targeted very, very uniquely in this country, especially young white men, for you're the source of all the evil, you're the bad guy, you're the villain in every story. There is a tendency to coalesce and then push back. And you get into this, there's almost a bunker mentality that takes place where it's like, who all's being attacked? Okay, let's band together and push back. And like you said, I think the most frustrating thing, we all see this, when somebody finally says the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, thank God they said the thing. They said the thing out loud. And the danger in that is I've seen people who have said things that are very reasonable. And I appreciate that they had the courage to say it. But then everything else they say.
Yeah.
It's like I'm looking at it going, oh God, you were so right here and you were so wrong here. But the problem is, and let me share an experience on this. I was speaking at, were you there? No, you weren't there for this. I was speaking at the Young Americans Foundation, the lunch, the Young Men's Luncheon. And it was the first time in 10 years they had a Young Men's Luncheon. They had done Young Women's Luncheon, but not Young Men's. And so they're like, we got to stop doing it. We got to have something for the men. And I was honored to be the one that was talking to them about it. And one of the students got up and asked me a question. He goes, how do we, if we want to be good men, if we want to be strong men, how do we push back against this kind of like hedonistic inclination? And he brought up Andrew Tate. And I said, look, anybody that has watched anything I said knows that what I advocate for and what Andrew Tate advocate for are very, very different.
Sure.
Very, very different. And I take a lot of issue with some of the things that Tate has advocated for and some of the things that Tate has done. I said, but let me tell you why we need to be a little bit careful when we approach this issue. And this is the part where some people get mad at me. And I don't care because what I'm about to say I think is absolutely true.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, conservative men and Christian men were quiet.
Yeah.
When young men were being trashed by the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely trashed. And here comes in Andrew Tate. And the first things that he started to say that gained him a lot of prominence were the things that were like, screw that, be strong, be capable, be all these things, and toxic masculinity is garbage. And there was a whole generation of young men that said, that guy is the only guy defending me. That guy's the only guy defending me. And then they attacked him. If you feel like for the first time in your life, someone finally stood up and had your back, and then somebody starts attacking that guy, you double down.
Triple down.
And the reason why, and please hear me when I say this, because I think it confuses some people. Men associate love with loyalty. If you had my back when I needed you and nobody else did, that will cover a multitude of other sins in a man's mind, especially if it was something where it came to a point that really spoke to you and you really felt protected. Um, that's what Andrew Tate represents for a lot of young men
Yeah.
in the world. And so the moment you decide, if the first time I'm seeing you get up and talk about masculinity, you're spending 90% of your time trashing Andrew Tate, in that young man's mind, nope, I didn't know. Where were you when I needed you?
Yeah.
That guy was there.
Yeah. It tells me that you have missed a huge portion
Yes.
of the conversation that has been taking place online, and you got to the party late.
Yes.
And for Gen Z, the conversation online is just as important, if not
Yes.
more, than real life.
Yes.
We always joke about how the internet isn't real life, but for anybody under the age of 30, it is.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean,
know-
honestly, online is real life now. And the reason why is because we're all on it.
Yeah.
Doing what we do on it. And so it is an aspect of real life. I mean, it's not like online is nothing but an entertainment mechanism that's curated for your purely for entertainment. No, we do everything online. That's
Yeah.
how we communicate things. That's how we get news now. That's everything's there. Most people are dating online now. I mean, so it makes sense that people would hold that up as being important.
Yeah.
And my argument and the way I finished out answering this question was, I believe that you need to be a good man of God.
Mhm.
And that's what I will advocate for. But what I first need to do is I first need to advocate for that in such a way, not just with how I speak, but with how I conduct myself, how I live my life, in such a way to where a young man can look at that and say, okay, there's something there that I admire. There's something there that is working,
Mhm.
and I want it. What is the source of that? That is what gives me the ability to then say, Christ is the source
Yes.
of it. But if my initial interaction with that young man is to bash the guy that had his back, I am now guilty by association. They will automatically put me in the camp of all the people that were trashing them. And in some cases, they actually put me in a worse camp. Or not me, but they'll put the person that does it in a worse camp. Here's the worst camp. The worst camp is, you know what? They're my enemies. They're my enemies. This guy had my back, but you were too much of a coward to do anything. And now you
Yeah.
want me to listen to you?
Mhm.
At least they're fighting me.
Mhm.
At least this guy's supporting me, but you
Yeah.
just sit on
And
the sidelines.
How many pastors are in that camp?
A lot.
A lot.
A
There's
lot. The good news is, though, this is the part that is encouraging, because that's a pretty sad story, especially if we're trying to reach out to Gen Z men. The good news is that you do have a lot of guys like John Lovell,
Sure.
like Chad Robichaud, Chad Wright. You have guys like Victor Marks. These guys are people that are coming forward, and I think that they are delivering a view of masculinity that a lot of young men are looking for, but it's not rooted in just become as capable and as strong as you can so you can get a lot of money and sleep with a lot of women. What they're saying is, no, find a good Christian woman, get married,
Yeah.
have kids, do these other things, live for something. Because here's the other thing I will tell you. A lot of these things, and this is the part that's sad, a lot of the Gen Z men that are now trying to improve themselves in order to get better are going to arrive to get better, but not for a good and noble purpose, to get more of what they want. The more they get what they want, the more they realize that it's hollow without a bigger purpose.
But I also think that we have to go through pain before we get to
Yeah.
the good days.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And-
sometimes
and,
the only way out is through it.
and if you look at this over 50 years, yeah, there'll be a period of disappointment and
Mhm.
emptiness and so on and so forth. But over a period of time, we might get back to where we want to be and where we know is good.
Yeah. No, it's good. Well, and again, I think that one
We
of the
call
most,
that the long march
times.
reversing the institution.
yeah, the long march back to the
Yeah, we
institution.
didn't get here overnight. We're not going to get out of it overnight.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the most powerful demographic or powerful polls that I've seen, and again, I talked about this with Brandon Tatum. When you poll young men who voted for Donald Trump and you ask them their highest priority, it's to have kids.
Yeah.
Now, for women that voted for Trump, that's number 6 out of 12. I guarantee you, if we look at that poll in 5 more years, it will have moved up significantly for young women.
I agree.
And this is the part people don't want to hear. It's because young men, once they realize that they have an obligation to lead and to be noble and to do these things, and once they start doing it without your dang permission, because it's the right thing to do, everything else in society realigns appropriately.
Well, how encouraging is it that we know young men have been lacking a purpose for so long, and so many of them are seeing their number one purpose in life to
Yeah.
have a family
Yeah.
and to take on that role of parenthood and marriage and leadership. Like that's super encouraging.
Yeah.
And it's the women that are going to go through the hard time of disappointment and emptiness. And like they're the ones that are still in college going to further career. It's the young men that are saying trade schools might be better for me.
Mhm.
There might be a different path. They'll come around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
and-
think we are on track to have a lot of childless women over 50 that basically it's too late for them now. And I mean, there's a fair number of them that are going to like white knuckle it and pretend it doesn't bother them that
Mhm.
they have no legacy aside from having worked a career to try to make money and for someone other than
Yeah.
themselves their whole life. I mean, it's this idea of just totally misplacing the value. And later in life, who are you going to be surrounded by
Yeah.
in your old age? I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's going to be devastating when it hits.
Well, and like to that point, because I know there's a lot of men that are like frustrated. They want to find a wife, and at the same, they feel like, well, at the same time that young men are more conservative, young women are more liberal. But that's starting to change too. Like if you just got to lower the age group. If you look at 18 to 29, you're going to get disappointed.
Mhm.
If you start to look at 20 and under, all of a sudden you're starting to see that there's a shift there because a lot of them have realized that, oh, we were sold a bill of goods. And they're watching the 35, the 45, the 55-year-old women getting on TikTok going, dating is so hard and why can't I find a good man? Because they're already married.
Yeah.
Because they're already married. That's why you can't. You bought into this lie that you could go out and do whatever you wanted and put off everything else until you were ready. And now you figure out that, okay, now you're ready. And guess who isn't? The guys you want. Or you decided that, why am I only attracted to conservative men? Because they're the ones that want to protect. They're the ones that want to provide. And guess what? They don't want someone that's going to treat them like trash.